What if the storm trying to destroy your life right now is exactly where Jesus is waiting for you? Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a powerful 2,000-year-old story that honestly holds the ultimate remedy for our modern emotional chaos. If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by things totally outside your control, and let's be real, who hasn't, this deep dive is absolutely for you. We're going to look at where ancient biblical narrative meets modern mental health, all to help you find a deep, lasting peace. Seriously, let that thought sink in for a second. We so often look at our darkest, most chaotic moments and think, well, I've been abandoned. But as we explore the source text today, we're stepping into a visceral, cinematic atmosphere of absolute terror, one that actually leads to the most incredible revelation of comfort. You are not alone in the dark. Section 1. The Raging Storm. Okay, let's dive into this. Picture the scene. It's evening. The crowds have finally dispersed after a long day of teaching, and Jesus and his disciples set out across the water in a small, wooden fishing boat on the infamous Sea of Galilee. To really grasp the sheer terror of what happens next, you've kind of got to picture the geography. So, the Sea of Galilee is basically this massive basin, and it sits nearly 700 feet below sea level, totally surrounded by these steep mountains. When the east winds whip over those peaks, all that cold, heavy air drops violently into the basin and just smashes into the warm air rising off the lake. This sudden, explosive collision, it doesn't just make for some bad weather, it creates terrifying immediate squalls that can turn a perfectly calm lake into a literal death trap in a matter of minutes. And that brings us to a terrifying physical reality. The ancient texts tell us the waves were breaking into the boat so that the boat was already filling. Now remember, these aren't just tourists on a cruise. At least 4 of these guys are seasoned professional fishermen. They've spent their whole lives on this water. But this storm is so violent, so historically furious, that even these hardened sailors are gripped by sheer, heart-pounding terror. The wood is groaning, icy water is rushing in, and they are completely convinced they're about to drown. Section 2. Do you not care? Now, what's really interesting about this comparison is the total juxtaposition happening inside this sinking vessel. You've got 2 completely different realities occupying the exact same space. On one side, the disciples are frantic. They're bailing water, screaming over the wind, absolutely certain this is their violent end. And on the other side, you have Jesus. He's profoundly exhausted from the relentless demands of the crowds, and he is sleeping soundly on a cushion in the stern of the boat. The thunder, the freezing water slapping his face, the screaming men, none of it wakes him. He's just resting in absolute trust. Finally, in a state of absolute, sheer panic, they shake him awake, and they scream this agonizing, desperate question, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" It's such a profound question, isn't it? Because, well, it's the exact same feeling of abandonment so many of us experience today. When severe trials, deep depression, or just terrifying anxieties swallow our lives, we tend to look up at the heavens and cry out, "God, are you asleep? Do you seriously not care that I'm drowning here?" Section 3. Peace, be still. So the boat is swamping, the wind is howling, Jesus opens his eyes, stands up in this violently pitching boat, and faces the darkness. He doesn't panic, he just speaks. He issues the command, "Peace, be still." But here's the fascinating part. The literal Greek translation of those words actually means to be muzzled or gagged. Jesus isn't just talking to a meteorological event here. The sources indicate he's addressing the storm as if it were an antagonistic, demonic force, like a raging maniac. With just 3 words, he binds the chaos. He literally gags the storm. Immediately, the text says, the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Just imagine the physiological relief washing over those disciples in that split second. The deafening roar of the wind abruptly stops. Those towering waves instantly flatten out into glass. The absolute serenity that falls over the water is frankly shocking. The Prince of Peace has spoken, and the chaos simply has no choice but to submit. Section 4, the anatomy of anxiety. Let's move to and see how this builds, deeply connecting the biblical allegory of the storm to the psychological storms we face in our minds today. You see, clinical anxiety and depression act like massive internal storms. As detailed in our sources, anxiety is deeply rooted in the body's fight-or-flight false alarm. Your brain reacts to a perceived threat as if it were a literal life-or-death reality. It triggers this massive flood of stress chemicals designed for survival, which causes racing thoughts, severe physical tension, and irrational fears. To a person suffering from clinical anxiety or deep depression, this internal false alarm feels exactly like that sudden violent squall on the Sea of Galilee. Your boat feels like it's sinking, and you feel utterly helpless. Section 5. Finding calm in the chaos. Just as there was a solution in the boat that night, there are powerful mechanisms for us right now. 40 million. Over 40 million American adults suffer from anxiety disorders. If you're watching this explainer right now and you feel like the walls are closing in, if you're fighting severe depression or panic attacks, please know this. You are absolutely not alone. The storm you're in is a shared human struggle. It is not a personal failing. And right in the middle of that struggle, the biblical perspective offers immense empathy. Just listen to the comfort in Isaiah 41:10. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. This paints a picture of a God who isn't distant, he's not indifferent, and he is definitely not asleep to your pain. He's actively engaged in providing peace and comfort precisely when your waves are the highest. This is further reinforced by 1 Peter 5:7, which says, "Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you." The simple act of prayer, of literally casting our worries onto him, is a profound psychological and spiritual release. It allows us to finally let go of the exhausting illusion that we can control the storm ourselves. Instead, we're inviting divine peace to enter our chaotic minds. And this brilliantly illustrates how modern therapy and ancient scripture actually align perfectly. Christian counseling sources highlight interventions that work on both a spiritual and a neurological level. Prayer invites peace and actively lowers physiological stress. Biblical meditation works to displace those irrational, racing thoughts. And cognitive reframing, which is a staple of modern therapy, is beautifully mirrored right here. You're taking a fearful, distorted thought and replacing it with a realistic, faith-informed perspective. Basically, you are training your brain to recognize that the creator of the universe is in the boat with you. Section 6. You will not sink. So the crucial point is this. When Jesus told the disciples to go across to the other side of the lake, he meant it. His life was firmly, prophetically aimed at the cross. He was utterly invincible until his appointed hour on Calvary. Because the creator of the universe was asleep in the stern of that little fishing vessel, that boat was physically incapable of sinking. The middle of that terrifying storm was, ironically, the safest place on earth, simply because Christ was there. And that leads us to our final, powerful thought for this explainer. No matter how incredibly severe your depression is today, no matter how violently anxiety is rocking your life, you have the Prince of Peace with you. Jesus is in your boat today. He cares that you are hurting. And because he is with you, you will not sink. The storm will be muzzled. The only question left is, will you hand over the control and let him calm your storm?